All right, we are live. Greetings, fellow Earthlings. Welcome to the Great Debate Community Channel. I'm your host, John Peterson. All right, we are live. Greetings, fellow Earthlings. Welcome to the Great Debate. Somebody's got the stream feeding back through. Fellow Earthlings. Welcome to the Great Debate. Somebody's got the stream feeding back through.
Yeah, they do.
It's not me. It looks like it's either Noka or Nick.
It's not me. I've got my mic on mute.
I was on mute. Oh, what happened? What happened to Christy?
I think it was Christy. I think that's why she left.
It always happens. She'll be back.
Yeah, she'll be back.
It wasn't Christy. She's gone, and it's still happening.
It always happens.
She'll be back.
Yeah, so Max, see if you can get a hold of her. And see if
she's gone, it's still happening.
Well, because I had just
Lindsay.
I was yeah, we're still getting feedback on that. As soon as I muted you, Mac, it went away. So, all right, sounds good now. I don't know what you got going on there, Mac, but that feedback was coming from your end. Maybe you need to get like some earbuds or, and I got to present Christy here. All right. This is all what happens when you're live. But so anyway, today we're joined by the folks that own the League of Extraordinary Atheists for Humanism. Did I get that right, Christy?
Sure.
Okay. And we're also joined by Jim Majors, Nick Soutter, Sokka Count, and the Raging Atheist. We're going to talk a little bit about Leah to start out. And as you saw from the title, we're going to discuss humanism and why religion is not necessary for people to be good. And all sorts of stuff related to humanism. And I'm not that familiar with it myself, so it's going to be a learning experience for me as well. But let's start by talking to Christy and Gray and League of Extraordinary Atheists for Humanism. Now, first of all, I want to ask Gray or Mac. He said that he originally started the channel. Where did you come up with that name, Mac?
Oh, that's a good question. I came up with it because I personally like the idea. Well, one of humanism. Two, I like the idea of superheroes being a guiding example, because one, we know that they're not real, so we don't have to take it seriously. We don't have to act like it's any kind of divine word. Two, I think a lot of people in today's culture kind of look at superheroes as a means of looking at decent, like, morality. So I thought it'd be a cool thing to place humanism, I think the most moral standpoint, the most moral system that we have constructed so far as humans, with the idea of superheroes and like a league of humanists, but they are atheists. At the same, so you have the League of Extraordinary Atheists for Humanism. I wanted to really show this this moral group of ungodly human beings that just want to help society and also talk about politics and religion.
Right, and that's leads right into our discussion that we'll be having in a few minutes. That you don't necessarily have to have a God belief to be a good person and to help your fellow man out. So, Chris, Yeah, and so Christy, and then yeah, for people who might not know, maybe there's some younger folks in the audience. Of course, the name of their channel is a parody of the movie League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, or I don't know if that was a comic book also, but so Christy, how did you and Mac get together and decide to team up on this?
Serendipity, honestly. It just happened that I was in the right place at the right time when Mac was thinking about actually doing something besides just the Facebook group, like doing something weekly. And he didn't want to do it just by himself, nor are him or myself tech savvy at all. So we definitely lucked out by having Notcha Witness, who has his own channel. Everyone should be subbed to him. He is sadly undersubbed for as brilliant of a human as he is. And he really is a humanist. So he was a great fit. And I was doing a weekly podcast on the 20th century American history each week. And
on Wonder Lady, right?
On Wonder Lady's channel.
Yep,
yeah.
Yep. I've seen many of those.
Thanks. Yeah, that was interesting. It was a lot of research, a lot. But it just so happened that I was coming to the end of that when Mac was going through thinking, maybe I really want to do this. And so I was lucky. I mean, I was lucky. I wouldn't have it any other way, though. It's my spot, damn it.
And so both of you kind of jump in there and answer this question. If in a few words, how would you describe your channel and its content?
Go first, Mac.
Thanks, Christy. Pretty simple, really. It's pretty much falls within our intro. Hi, welcome to the League of Extraordinary Atheists for Humanism, where we discuss religion and politics, or where we attempt to apply logic and reason to religion and politics.
Yeah.
Here it is.
Yeah, I agree.
It's simple, and then I fucked it up.
It's a lot of that. Attempting to apply logic and reason to issues and topics that are going on right now that sometimes make you want to smash your head into the wall. So it's woosah. And then if I could step away from it and look at it from a logical, a place of logic and reason, how would I look at this and how could I present it? It's harder than you think. It's hard. Yeah.
It is. So
you mentioned Notcha Witness had helped you out, but this question's for both of you. What YouTubers out there, if any, inspired you to decide to become content creators?
Okay.
You go first this time.
For me, I'm sure a few of you know the story, how I even fell into the atheist community. A best friend of mine of 2 decades, of 19 years, she got lost to the Jehovah's Witnesses. And by trying to find as much information, factual information as I could to present to her, to show her that this was a mistake, that you do not want to join the Jehovah's Witnesses, what I found was Telltale Atheist. And from him, Holy Kool-Aid, but I would have to say Telltale was the first one where I was like, wait, it says atheist in his name. What's that even? I don't feel like I should watch this. That immediate, like, maybe what he's saying really resonates, but where it's coming from matters too. But then, I was like, well, he's right. But I couldn't send it to her because it had atheist in the name. So I needed to find more information, and by doing that, I became an atheist. It's very easy.
Wait, that is so interesting what you just got done saying, because it speaks to the stigma that atheists are saddled with to a lot of society. That your first response was, oh, I probably shouldn't even look at this, because it says atheist in the title like that. Wow, that's something. Mac, how about you? What YouTubers inspire you?
That's a really great question. So it's kind of a plethora. I had my channel for about 9 months before I found the Great Debate Community. So it kind of started with Shoe on Head, actually, and Cosmic Skeptic. I would say were the first two YouTubers that I really found appealing. It was like, hey, maybe I could like get into this. When I decided that what I was an atheist, when I had like realized it, I went ahead and made a YouTube channel. Like that's how I came out, and then I showed my wife this video I made, and she was already an atheist, so she was just like, oh, "Wow, cool, you've grown, and I like it." So
her feed dish plan is working.
yeah, basically, the atheist agenda was pushed. So after I made that, I started making just videos concerning either like morality or humanitarianism, like what I thought these were, just thinking kind of on my own and finding little ideas from Richard Dawkins and Christopher Hitchens. And then, like I said, I found Shoe on Head and Cosmic Skeptic, and I'm like, all right, I think I like this kind of content. I want to focus on it more. And then I found Shannon Q and Steve McRae. That's when I really started to hone in on what I do now. And I researched humanism more because I started to find that there was a word besides humanitarianism that aligned with all of my views. I was making it up as I went, and then I found that it was already a thing, which felt nice. It was very vindicating. So I guess again, the YouTubers would be Shannon Q, Steve McRae, Cosmic Skeptic, and Shoe on Head.
Yes, definitely. And to add to that, besides YouTube channels, for me, what really just made me change everything about the way that I believed and thought was education. Because I would find something through Telltale that I had more questions than answers by watching it. I would just kind of make a little list of things to look up. Atheism was big, not just definitions. I mean, I want to know academically. So philosophy, I couldn't get enough. I couldn't get enough of ancient history when I started looking at all these old myths and reading them, going, oh my God, how stupid have I been? Like, I just believed. I just said, okay, it's true because I was told. And then by doing the academic part of it and taking a lot of critical thinking courses to, sit back and go, well, I think I talked about this last night. The default setting, when we have a default setting, if there is a position to be had, whether yay or nay, and you have no information about it, the default setting is I don't fucking know. And I held on to that on everything on the planet except for magic. For magic, it was I know, because that's what I was taught. That was like, oh gosh, like right here. Oh, I've got to apply it to that too. And I think that made me fall in love with learning even more. Just, I had everything wrong. So obviously I need to learn everything the correct way. And I have a long ways to go. Every time I learn something else, I'm like, I just don't know anything. I don't know anything.
Well, and what you said is, there's a whole field of presuppositional apologetics that's based on the idea that a whole group of people refuse to use the phrase "I don't know." They want to pretend that they know.
Mm-hmm. Even now, it's hard to say because you want to have an answer. I think it's a human thing, but I want to also go further and say it's definitely a United States of America thing.
That too.
Definitely an American thing. We know. Yeah. I know.
I want to piggyback on what Christy's saying a little bit.
Sure.
Because just learning new things and trying to be skeptical. Full disclosure, when I started kind of diving into the political stuff that we cover now, when Christy was throwing it all at me after we talked for like 2 or 3 hours one night after her first interview on my channel, I'm just like, I don't know if I agree with any of this. Mm-hmm. Christy might be crazy, but he's really cool and I respect her out of the couple hours here that we've spent together. So I'm going to look into everything she's sent me, and I did, and it just made too much sense. I really couldn't rebut any of it. Not that I was smart enough to, but just trying to be open and a little bit skeptical at the same time. Yeah. She really changed my political views on a lot of things, and if she didn't change them, she deepened them. Yeah. So I've learned a lot from Christy.
You know, and the only other question I have for the two of you is, so it's the League of Extraordinary Atheists for Humanism. Now, you both you have individual channels too, don't you? Are there other platforms that you put content on that we should know about?
Mac does.
Christy should be on everyone's channel.
Yeah. I'm a channel whore.
Pretty much her home channel is the League of Extraordinary Atheists for Humanism. And then my home channel is Gray Skeptic. That's the one I started on. I want to keep that more based on like atheism and like my arguments and such. So I'm trying to stay away from politics on that channel and save that for the league.
Uh-huh. And again, that's the League of Extraordinary Atheists for Humanism. We will get a podcast, and we will a weekly podcast, and we will get a link to that channel in a pinned comment when this posts as a video. But as Nick Soutter always says, just open up another window right now and go over there and give them a sub. It's Christy Santiago and Gray Skeptic, or we call him Mac around here. And it's definitely a channel you need to be sub to. And now, real quick, too, before we get on to the discussion, I also want to mention we got somebody here today that perhaps the two of you should get together with and do something, because he has a political channel, too, as well, called Move Left. And I'm talking about the Raging Atheist. He has his channel, The Raging Atheist, but he also has a channel called Move Left. And he is going to be working on the Bernie Sanders campaign this year, and he's going to be putting some videos up about that. But if you guys do politics, the three of you should maybe get together and do something sometime in the future. Now, last I checked, I asked him before the broadcast. Nakasuchi, the Raging Atheist, was at 1,993 subs just before we started. And so I'm doing a call out to the live chat, and for anybody listening to this when it posts as a video, but before this is over, we're going to get them over 2,000. But if you're not subbed to the Raging Atheist, go over there right now, give them a sub. Let's get them over 2,000 before we end the stream.
And don't confuse it with my channel, Move Left, which is a West Coast themed lifestyle channel.
About the left coast. Okay, yeah. And so,
well, and I was a political operative for a while. I was the district coordinator for the 2nd Congressional District in Connecticut for the Obama campaign during the primaries, and I used to do a lot. So I would also love to chat with you guys. So
I still need to talk with you, Nick, because I actually worked for the Obama campaign here in locally in my hometown way back when he first won. And I'll be going to Detroit for Bernie in 2 weeks, so I should start getting some of that content up soon, hopefully.
We will talk.
Just signed all of the things to become a volunteer for Bernie, so I'm right there with you.
I joined the Obama campaign when he was polling at 0.5% nationally. That's when I joined, and that's how serious I was about it. And I stayed with it all the way through the end of the primaries. Once the primaries were done, I was like, there's no point. When once McCain picked Palin, I was like, I'm out. They don't need me anymore.
That was comedy gold. I mean.
You betcha.
Oh God.
All right. So as you see in the title, today we're going to discuss religion versus humanism. Now we don't have any religious people here today, so maybe not so much the versus part, but we'll have a discussion about the differences of and the fact that you don't need God to be good.
I'll play God's advocate.
What's that? You'll play the gods out of it? Okay.
I do it to everyone else on my channel.
I think maybe some of the things we discussed, but I mean, everybody in here, of course, you two, Leah, you identify as humanists. Nick has the Humanist Codex. Nakasuchi definitely identifies as secular humanist. Jim has told me he identifies as a humanist. Even Sokka account, he might not identify as a humanist, but I've talked to him at length, and a lot of the things he believes as far as, you know, fair play and equality for all, I would say that he would agree with some of the tenets of humanism. But so, you know, we want to kick this discussion off. We'll let the two folks from Leah get it going. Why don't we need God to be good?
Well, I kind of have a question first, actually, before we jump into it, because I kind of want to know what Nick has to say about what the tenets of humanism are according to his codex, because I actually haven't read it yet. I had to pull it up last night, but as soon as our show was over, I had to go to bed because I had 3 hours before I had to go back to work. So.
Well, that's let me just make sure I'm not muted. Okay, so I sort of loosely identify as humanist. The codex still actually is under the domain name the Atheist Codex, and that was our name originally. But we believe that we have taken Gandhi's tagline and made it our own, which is "No higher God than truth." And but I think one of the things that, in my mind, and I think this is a tenet of humanism, is what does it take for people to be happy and thriving and successful? And in my opinion, if you have religious beliefs that allow you to do that, I've got absolutely no objection. I've got no objection whatsoever. I am a very strong anti-theist. But believe it or not, and this is one of the things where Hitchens is phenomenally misunderstood, because there's two ways to describe theism. If you look in the dictionary, it's usually that gives two ways. The first is theism as in all religious beliefs, but there's also a second way, which is theism as opposed to deism. And the fundamental difference there is that deism is, in that case, a belief in a higher power of some kind. Theism just takes it a step further and says that that higher power communes with you and empowers you in some way to tell other people how to live. I've got no problem with the first two premises. Those are fine. And if a God makes you happy, that's really great with me. I'm perfectly cool with it. But the second that God is empowering you to tell others how to live, who they can marry, what love is, who should vote what politically, then I have a really serious problem with it. But I also object to atheists who bully people, who sit there and say, no, you have to give up your religious beliefs. And I'm sitting there going, you're doing the exact same thing you accuse the theists of doing, which is you're telling them how to live. And I don't think you can do that. So we were actually attacking on Twitter in particular, we were attacking more atheists for quite some period of time than theists. And there are a lot of theists who just have me on speed dial and say, Nick, could you come in here and get this anti-theist off my back? And they're like, you know, wait a minute, you're an anti-theist too. Yeah, but there's a difference. So we ended up we had to switch the name to the Humanist Codex because it was the only way other atheists could understand why we were engaging them and why we said, no, you cannot be doing what you're doing. So that sort of answers your question. The biggest stroke to answering that is I believe that we should do most what makes people happy. That means eliminating theistic religions that require one to proselytize and force their beliefs on others, and allowing people to have personal beliefs, whatever they are, that just makes them happy.
I agree. I love that.
Yeah, me too. Christy and I have a saying that we mention on our show very, very often, and we haven't really made it a saying yet, but we say it enough to where it should be, is humanist first.
Yeah.
Like, we're atheists. I think we're both anti-theists, at least to a point, but we're humanist first, because that's where the morality lies. That's the worldview that we adhere to, because atheism isn't a worldview.
No. Do no harm.
Yeah, do no harm.
No harm.
We have what we set forth as pillars for our channel. But before I say those, I do want to more directly answer the question that John put forth for us. Why or how can we be good without God? And to me, that actually goes back, and I'm no expert on evolution, so please don't ask me to get in any kind of good discussion about evolution. But it looks like, to me, from what I know of evolution and just how we've come to build societies, we have evolved with empathy. We have evolved with society and wanting to like live amongst each other and benefiting from that. Mm-hmm. So you don't even need to really call it good without God. I think that can be a little subjective, honestly. But I think you can just say there's a mutual benefit by not being dicks to each other and helping each other out. And not just being not dicks to each other, but helping each other out and just building society. Right. So that's leading into these 7 pillars that we have laid out, which are not by any means the strict principle base that you have to buy in or right. whatever. But this is what we think really kind of props humanism up. Is education. We feel like everyone deserves to have a free, fair, truthful education. Free speech. Everyone should be able to speak their mind. We're anti-theists, but if you're not, that's fine. Like, we respect you having your own views and being allowed to say them. Human rights. We fight for human rights, including free speech and like access to like water and again education. It's kind of a wide range. These are a little bit loose, so they can be interpreted a bit. Logic, we want to adhere to logic. Morality, empathy, and political secularism. Because I don't like to say personally that I'm a secular humanist, because I feel like that should just be a given. I don't like to have to add that. I'm just a humanist. I'm an atheist humanist, secular humanist. I'd rather just say I'm a humanist. Right. That's just a personal preference. So I hope that answers the question. I think that's the best I can do anyways. Is there anything you want to add to it, Christy?
I do. For me personally, I don't need a magical being or a higher power or an authoritarian reason to be good. I have daughters, but even before I was a mom, which my entire adult life I've been a mom, so it's a long time ago. However, I still felt the same then. That old saying, do unto others as you would have done to you, is so important. And I feel like all of the things that we humans need to know to be good people, we literally learn in kindergarten. To share, to not hit, to not lie, like just basic empathy. You know, if someone is hurt, I don't need to be hurt also to know their pain. So I don't need a higher being telling me how to be moral. If there ever was a higher being that came about and was so good, and I thought, wow, they're better than my morals, I would be down with that. They'd have to prove themselves, of course, or itself, or however that would work. But there isn't, and there's no reason for me to believe that there is something, a being in any way, that is lording over me. I'm responsible for how I treat people. And when I'm questioned by a theist, well, then how do you know it's morals if it didn't come from God? Or all those questions that come, it can't be moral if it didn't. I think, well, that's not true. Think about people who have never been exposed to any religion, and they treat each other, they don't lie to each other, they treat each other with empathy because that's the world they want to live in. So back to myself. The world I want to help achieve means that I have to do my part. And it is a selfish thing. It is a selfish reason to be nice to other people. I want to be treated nice as well. I want my daughters to see that you can treat people nice even if they're an asshat. you don't have to be an asshat as well. You don't have to have them in your life. You don't have to participate in things with them. But in other things as an adult, you will have to participate. You might work at a place with assholes. So I think it's important to put out there the type of place and to lead by example. And I don't need a God or a Lord or a dictator or anything telling me how to be good. I know how to be good. And I think that the reason I know is because how I would want my daughters to be treated, how I would want to be treated, how I would like the meanest meanheads in this whole world to start treating each other. I know that's impossible and it's a big dream, but I'm not going to not lead by example because they are not going to listen or behave right.
Real quick, Christy, I see you were in the chat there, and anybody else who's been in the chat, maybe you can clear a confusion up for me. Everybody keeps atting, A-T-I-N-G, Epic Christ, and I don't see anybody in chat with that tag. Do they have another name that they're in the chat under?
You might have them blocked.
I don't know.
No, as a mod, we should be able to see him. I don't see him either.
I see him.
I see him.
Okay.
How can he be hidden from me and Nick? That doesn't make any sense.
Well, we may just be blind.
Or
there he is.
Yeah,
I found him.
yeah.
I found him.
Ooh, yeah.
I scrolled through like 2 times and couldn't find him. All right, anyway, and I don't know, is that the person that we were all arguing with on Twitter over the last 24 hours? That was Epi Christ, wasn't it? Or
Yeah, that's him. It's the same person.
Is
Okay.
Epic Christ and Epic Christ, I think, are 2 different people.
oh, are they? Oh, okay, all right. But at any rate, I thought I must be just suffering from old manism. I can't see him. So at any rate, everybody else, feel free to get in there now that they've kicked it off. Anything you want to add?
I had one thing I wanted to bring up, which is on the Codex, we keep videos of animals doing kind things. So a horse feeding another horse, taking straw literally from because the horse is hungry, can't get it, taking straw from one side of the stable, putting it to the other. A bear literally taking a drowning crow, because birds can't swim, pulling it out of the water and then just letting it go. A dog diving across 4 lanes of traffic to save another dog. And the thing I often say is, okay, could somebody please tell me which god these animals prayed to that made them moral? I haven't gotten a good answer to that question yet. And what we have found, to get into, how you had started talking about evolution, all species, dolphins will protect swimmers from sharks and other animals, and all animals have a moral code commensurate with their level of intelligence. That's why we, as the most intelligent species, have the greatest capacity for morality. And it seems to me that you don't need any kind of belief to have that, and that really the gods that we have invented reflect what we already know and have evolved ourselves.
Well, and Mac touched on it too. Mac touched on basically, what you're getting at is that, which a lot of theists want to deny, is that our morality is based in evolution quite a bit. Because of evolution, we have concern for well-being. Because of evolution, we are social creatures, and those things inform our morality, and it is based on millions of years of evolution. And that's why, as you said, you can see that behavior in animals.
Sweet. I get the pushback for the first time. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, and go ahead, Sokka. Give a little pushback.
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
okay,
so
music. Da, na, 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 na,
So I think that one of the big problems we have to do, we have to make sure that we don't anthropomorphize human characteristics onto animals. Okay, you can pull up examples of dolphins doing good things, or I've seen the one with the bear and the crow. It's weird because he just kind of pulls the crow out of the water. Doesn't attempt to give his mouth to mouth though, but that's fine.
That's another video. I think you can find that on like Pornhub. But at any rate,
it's for the furry fans. So for every single video like that you can find. I mean, you can find stories, or you can also see, cases of animals being completely brutal to each other, even within the same species. You could see dolphins, as well as rescuing swimmers, also grab people by the hair and pull them underwater and drown them. These things have happened before as well.
Well, that's usually play with the dolphins. I agree that they can be brutal to each other, so I will not necessarily disagree with that. But again, among the more intelligent species like dolphins usually try to play, and they don't realize you can't breathe underwater.
Mm-hmm. But I think
they don't know what they're doing.
I would say that within any type of animal that's going to be living within any type of large social group, there's going to be social conventions that have formed that's going to help them. Common example that gets brought up is why piranhas never eat each other. They are these conventions, but does a piranha not eat each other because of some type of intrinsic code? This is a set behavior in an animal that doesn't possess the cognitive ability to really kind of evaluate any type of proposition like that. We don't give a lot of credence to fish brains as having that type of forethought to analyze moral propositions, but yet we still observe it there. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I don't want to cut you off.
That's probably best if you do, or else I don't stop.
I mean, look, I don't want to I think this is where the common conflation seems to occur, which is, are we talking some sort of meta ethics or some other? I mean, I don't think, when we talk about why piranhas don't eat each other, it's the same reason the cannibalistic tribes don't eat each other. It's the same reason that we would want to have all the values that we are espousing. We're talking about trying to build a society that can function. So that's why we're morals. So, and admittedly, of course, animals can and do brutal things, but the argument is that they do have this sense of morality and can use it. The counter argument or the counter example to what you just said is, well, plenty of people believe in God and are brutal too, and plenty of people have religion and go around murdering all sorts of people. So, religion is no guarantee of morality any more than not having religion. The question is, do we need it? And I think the answer is a resounding no.
Yeah, and I think I can kind of get behind that, but I think that to the point, just for the anthropomorphizing of attributing those human characteristics onto an animal, that it's when we observe certain behaviors and then we say that it's indicative of some type of moral sense. We're not talking. It feels like we're not talking about moral sense in the same way, because generally moral propositions are represented in so we represent moral propositions or think about moral propositions in that way as a propositional content. Something that an animal, certain like a piranha wouldn't be able to do. So we see it and we say, well, hey, look at it, they're acting good. But not only are they acting good, they're acting good from a standard that we're applying, and they're acting good without actually going through the same type of moral processes that we would assign to somebody being good. They haven't made the choice to be good, is what I'm saying.
Well, so basically you're saying that, animals can be kind. It's not because of any conscious moral decision on their part. And Jim, I think, wanted to get in, and we haven't heard from the Raging Atheist either. Go ahead. And I'm getting some feedback. Somebody maybe is watching the stream, and but I don't know where it's coming from. Could just be in my head. Go ahead, Jim.
So there's a reason that these animals rarely kill each other. I mean, this isn't something that happens regularly. I mean, you would think that in a survival situation that they would resort to killing one of their own pack or their herd as a means of survival, but you see them working together and only as a last effort or as a means of asserting dominance or maybe keeping the gene pool shallow. There's reasons for it. So I mean, there's a reason that they don't kill each other, because they find value in each other. And out of all these things, like that religion provides us that we need fulfilled, like this sense of community, like we don't need to be alone. We need other people. We need to feel like we're a part of something. But the problem is that while religion does that, it also teaches that they're inferior, that homosexuals, if you're gay, you're inferior. If you're an apostate, you're inferior. If you adhere to another religion, you're inferior. It demands priority over your family and your friends. The parents who don't accept their children who are gay or atheist or get a blood transfusion, they cast their children off to the side in some religions. And worst of all, I think, is that religion teaches that this world is nothing compared to the next, and they set up this reward and punishment system that denies people simple pleasures of this very limited time that we have, and out of fear of punishment in the afterlife, and in relying God on you, or in relying on God to fix all of your problems for you, and it does people no good. It allows problems to get out of hand because you try to put it in the hands of God first instead of asserting your own authority over it.
I'd like to piggyback on that for a second, just because there's also something that someone has said in the live chat, and it dovetails with what Sokka says, and I wanted to clarify on it because somebody said, well, animals aren't being good, they're only following their nature. And, I'm somehow confusing morality because I say it's morality and all this other stuff. My argument is we're animals too, and it's in our nature as well. And that is the point that I am making, and it has evolved in us. Morality is in our nature just as it is in those animals. Now, we can also contemplate morality, and we certainly have higher cognitive abilities, but I think there's this tendency to conflate and to try to have this meta-ethical sense that there is necessarily a super morality that we are somehow in contact with. And what I'm saying is, nope, we're animals. We evolved the morality. It is sufficient. We don't need more. And it is built into us already in the same way as it is other animals.
Hey, real quick, let me get in here. Nakasuchi, the Raging Atheist, is only 4 away from 2,000 now. Come on, if there's anybody that joined us late, go over and give him a sub. But go ahead, Naka. I'd like to hear from you before Sokka goes.
I just kind of really want to go off of what Jim was saying, because I'm in complete agreement. So religious people, and the religion that I stand in opposition to on my channel, are the religions that create this other mentality and segregate human beings and put this human being as a lesser version than this human being. And Jim was talking about it with groups like the NIFB and homophobia and things like that. And, I too, kind of going with what Gray and Christy was talking about, I too like to put my humanism first. So I used to be a huge anti-theist. When I first started the Raging Atheist, I was exactly that. And I still have my moments. Anybody that has seen my channel sees it. But at the same time, because of my humanism, I have been able to really start empathizing with these even Christians that have done me personal wrong. People like Matt Powell. I have been able to empathize with these people, understand why they do the things that they do, that they were indoctrinated, that they don't even see that these things are indeed wrong. And that is something that I think humanism really allows. And I just don't really see it too much in Christianity or in any religion, really. And I've been a part of a lot of them. I noticed in chat, people like this one guy saying, I'm a Christian, but I'm also a humanist. I'm for human beings. That's very easy to say, but it's harder to do. This very person likes to ridicule every little thing I say if it's in an atheistic nature. So you are not empathizing with me or where I come from when you try to tear apart every little joke that I put on Twitter. So that's not humanism to me. You are not empathizing with me. So to me, it's just, humanism allows me to empathize where before, as a religious person, I was not able to.
And then let me say this, that Sokka can get in there, is let me just say that now that everybody's had a chance to get in here, I'm just going to let you guys go. Sokka wanted to go next, and you guys can handle the back and forth from there.
I think that the first point that I just want to kind of bring up was that I definitely sympathize with what Nick's saying about having certain things that are kind of ingrained with us. That the way we act could be a product of like I said, our the way that we act and interact with each other could be based on some type of evolutionary sense of empathy. But I mean, it also doesn't rule out the concept that, or the idea that we also maybe possibly evolved as more in line with egoism, and when so there's certain things that we'd always be acting within our own self-interests, and sometimes acting within our self-interests does make you work with a group. I mean, if you benefit from the group, if you have something to gain from working with somebody else, well, then it would be beneficial as an egoist to work with that group. But that only goes as far as that you can gain some type of, that you personally gain something from this. And if it is the case that, maybe we evolved as, egoistic type creatures, then to build a moral foundation on our nature probably wouldn't be the best thing. I'm not sure if anyone wants to respond to that before I just go to the next point.
It depends on how that's evolved and sort of much more nuances that go into it. I forget who the philosopher was who said this, but he said that we always act in our own self-interests, period. The most selfish, and I'm not talking Ayn Rand, this was like a Western philosopher. And so he had said that, and then someone caught him giving $1 to, or a quarter, I think it was, to a poor person. And they said, there you go, you did something selfless. And he said, no, I did that to alleviate my suffering at having to watch him. And
I like that.
Yeah. So I think it really depends on how and what you define self-interest. But if he really was, again, we have developed empathy, and we do suffer at watching other human beings suffer. And we will, in our own best interest, try to help them because it makes us feel better about ourselves. And that's something, and we have a very good understanding of how that evolved and why that actually gave human beings who had that a advantage, a Darwinian advantage in nature over those that did not, and they could function better in a society. They were liked more and weren't kicked out of the tribe where the chances of survival plummeted. So I think you'd have to take those nuances into account, which I don't think you're doing. But please continue. Thank you for the opportunity to reply.
I agree. I think it's just an open question. I'm not saying that I fall in either way. I'm just saying that to genuinely analyze the probability of each one, I think seems pretty equal. But I mean,
to be a pain in the sock, yeah.
To be a pain in the sock, I'm not advocating for that as a position. I'm just saying, yeah. But to Max, kind of following off of Jim's point, and something that Max said is that like one of these tenets of, I'm not sure how you said. I think you said tenets of pillars. Sorry, yeah, pillars of humanism. One of them was human rights, and I'm wondering whether or not under the category of human rights you would include religious freedom.
Yeah, absolutely. That's under, for me, that's kind of under free speech and human rights, like together. You have the right to believe and say what you believe, like however you do that, because humanism is very non-oppressive, right? So we don't want, like, although we disagree with someone, we want to give everyone the tools to get over false beliefs and give everyone the tools of having a free and fair life, which does oppress oppressive systems, but not directly. Did I say that non-dizzily enough?
Well, I'm curious, because we go off of Jim's point there. We talk about some of the ramifications of religious ideologies. You know, when it applies to things like medical care that people get, their own pursuit of happiness. It seems to endorse, to allow people to have those type of freedoms, is to endorse things that would actually go against like a humanistic viewpoint. Is that, like, don't you think that if you're looking for something that's going to be getting the most gain of pleasure or enjoyment out of life, or whatever the goal of a humanistic kind of society is, wouldn't it actually net more good to restrict people from having viewpoints where they restrict themselves.
I think I see what you're saying, but I would say no, not really, because because things like that is kind of what religions do, right? There's a doctrine that you have to follow. There's a certain way you're supposed to think, and it tends to lead to thought crimes and authoritarianism, and one like level or another. And that's kind of why Christy and I don't advocate for that. We don't want to dictate how you have to think. Like I said, we want to give everyone the access to the tools to find true things and believe true things rather than false things. Like I want to advocate more for like with street epistemology, kind of like Anthony Magnabosco, but I don't want to like actually impede on anyone's right to believe anything. Like even as far as like this is pretty much as extreme as it goes, and Raging Atheist can empathize, I think, as far as Matt Powell goes. I don't think he has the right to advocate for violence, but I think he has the right to believe what he believes. I think he can even say that like he hates gay people. That's he can say that. But we also have the free speech to be like, you're an asshole and no one should talk to you. Right? Like that's like how we've evolved as a society. Something I was going to say, kind of piggybacking on what Nick said, I think, is like we've evolved as a society like to take care of each other, and we like taking care of each other. We like propping people up, but that's kind of the rule. That doesn't include the exceptions, though, right? We have sociopaths, we have psychopaths, we have people who don't fit the rest of society. And the Leviathan really kind of takes care of that. The rest of society, caring for the rest of society, kind of weeds those people out. We incarcerate them. We've employed the death penalty. We really kind of scratch them out of society. And I'm not advocating, obviously, for any kind of like killing all people with social illnesses, social mental illnesses. I'm just saying that's the way that I look at it. I hope.
You said something interesting when you responded to the Leviathan. Are you referencing?
No, he doesn't. He doesn't mean the Hobbesian Leviathan, though.
Oh damn! Because that would have been.
Yeah, I know. Nice try.
I was about to say, Sokka, don't Sokka.
No, I've read Steven Pinker, and I was more referring to how he uses it.
Okay, so just this last question, I'm going to go back to shutting up and listening to you guys talk. Is that I know you made your expression about kind of a distaste for like an authoritarian type of idea, but if the goal of humanism would be to produce the greatest amount of good for humankind, if you could, if under an authoritarian regime where things were ruled and governed by someone with the most ideal humanistic views, and you can guarantee that that they're a benevolent leader that is endorsing all of the humanist ideals on people. Wouldn't that make an authoritarian regime the best possible world to live in?
You had to say the word Leviathan. As soon as you said the word Leviathan,
yeah, I knew it
he's
was
on
coming.
it. He's on it.
So
well, I knew it was coming when Max said mentioned the word authoritarian.
Yeah.
Authoritarian.
So I'm going to answer this two ways to try to make this as clear as I can. Christy and I are both, if not anti-capitalists, we aren't fond of capitalism. We steer more towards socialism. So there's that little nugget. But the thing that I think will clear this up the most is I'm not a utilitarianist person. Like I don't strictly adhere to like utilitarianism, which would My favorite example is say, well, to get the most people who need a working kidney, just take people off the street who have 2 good working kidneys and start taking them. That kind of that starts to make a distrust in society, and a distrust in society, causing the distrust of either thought police or we're going to take your kidney, isn't good for society. That doesn't really make a really good humanistic society. You need what is referred to as rule utilitarianism. So we strive for the best humanistic society. We strive for the best utility of everything that we have and make, but we regulate it. We advocate for the regulation of capitalism. We regulate for the regulation of free speech to a point, right? Maybe not hate speech is okay, but calls to violence are not. Am I making myself clear enough, or should I?
Let me just jump in here real quick and say that with the things you just advocated for, and I agree with you with everything you just said, you do tend towards the authoritarian end of the scale, because you're talking about government assuring those things, so that in all reality that tends towards the authoritarian end of the scale. The other alternative would be libertarianism, complete libertarianism, and that would be individual rule.
Right. Now there's something I always feel like I need to clarify, and Christy, if you want to jump in and finish my sentence, feel free to, because you've been quiet for a while. I do prefer socialism over capitalism, and most libertarians prefer more capitalism over socialism because they think stronger government, more government control, more authoritarianism. But authoritarianism and communism, authoritarianism and socialism doesn't necessarily go together. You can have a strong democracy and still have socialism and or communism or any kind of strong government. What you need to do is you need to fix democracy to make sure that the government that you have is actually by the people, for the people, and so on and so forth. Christy, Jim.
Yes. Okay. So the socialism that I stand firm for has nothing to fucking do with the government, actually. I want democracy. Democracy in this nation, and I'll just talk about this one, ends at the workplace. The place where we spend 5 days a week, most of our lives there. Why don't we have democracy there? We have dictatorship there. You're told what to wear, and I'm cool with rules. Everybody knows that. But if we want an egalitarian society where people show up to work, they should have some democracy to have a say. I love the working model. There are quite a few big corporations, Mercedes being one of them, where they have democracy at work. The workers vote on who their boss is going to be. If their boss doesn't do a good job for the workers, they fire him and get a new one. They vote on what their percentage raise should be. They vote on what vacation days, how many sick days, and it's a democracy. That's the actual socialism. If you know Professor Robert Wolff, you will just watch, 3 or 4 of his lectures will probably help out a lot. I like to read all of his stuff, so I just think he's brilliant. I think the democracy into the workplace would create the type of social country that we need. Don't need dictators lording over us in the place we spend most of our time. Now, a government, to me, I think a government does have a place, and elections do have consequences. You have the wrong person leading, and that person has access to control people, the means of production, how much taxes get paid by the regular person and how much get paid by the wealthy, how much get given back to the corporations. They all have consequences. So what I always say, and I love that Mac loves it too, is democracy is not a spectator sport. If we want this type of egalitarian mixed economy where we have strong safety nets, where education is limitless. If a 14-year-old says, I want to go to college to be a doctor, guess what? Go, keep going. Just go your whole life if you want. It should be available. That's the kind of socialism that I want. That's the type of beautiful egalitarian where we value education. We value truth. We value teaching our young generations to be skeptical, I don't know, let's go find out.
Right.
That's the type of socialism that I'm all for.
And to help with democracy, I think we both would advocate for ranked choice voting. But I want to give I want to give Jim a chance to talk because he looks like he's dying to.
Go, Jim.
No,
muted.
you guys are fine.
Okay.
I'll jump in later.
How about you, Raging Atheist? Do you feel like you haven't gotten in?
I did want to disagree with you, John, there for just a little bit, because you was saying that what Gray was saying was leading towards authoritarianship. I can't speak, but and I just really want to push back on that a little bit, because I think it does lead to what Republicans and conservatives and my friend Sokka here might say is big government, and I would strongly disagree with it. I think what Gray was speaking to was regulation, strict regulation when it comes to the economy, strict regulation when it comes to climate change, things of that nature. Not so much a dictator type authoritarian symbol for that. You know what I'm saying? So to where I think that the actual right wing who rails against big government, we've seen, especially with Trump, have gravitated towards that authoritarianship, towards that dictator figure. So while they're screaming about big government, they embrace it with a military-industrial complex.
Well,
I think he's using authoritarian. When I'm saying authoritarianism, I'm not necessarily speaking of totalitarianism or rule by.
I know we don't disagree very often, John.
Or rule by dictator. What I'm saying is if you are going to have, regulations and systems and laws in place that assure fair play for all and equality for all to society, well, who is going to implement them? It's going to be an authority. It's going to be the government.
Well,
or enforce them. Yeah. So that's what I mean by authoritarianism.
Well, but if we look at it, though, it's usually a group think and not a dictator think. So that's just pretty much what I'm pointing at, to where they like to say that we are that, and I really like to fight against that, because we're not. We're actually for groupthink and what's best for society, to where therefore they need that strong man. So I just really push back. And when my friend gave me that opportunity to push back on it, I had to take it.
Well, right. And here's the thing is, and I know I'm going to regret doing this, but
go for it, man.
Sokka, maybe you can explain it better than I can.
Real quick.
You know what?
30 minutes.
I'm happy to jump in too, but let's let Sokka go. But I'm happy.
Yeah, I think that what John put up is a good point. When we talk about regulations, we're talking also about enforcement of regulations, which means that there is a penalty imposed by an authority if one breaks those regulations. An enforcement of regulations is authoritarian. Now, we don't need to conflate authoritarianism with a dictatorship. They're not the same thing. Which is why we're very careful not to do that. But yeah, I think that's I think that's a kind of a nuanced point that I would probably be best when me and you have our conversation. Not.
Well, and I'd like to.
I really need to do that with you, Sokka, because we do kind of stay away from politics.
The only objection I would have is slightly with how John phrased it, because he said, okay, he said that would lean towards the authoritarian, and I don't even think that's how he put it, but the way he put it made it seem to me like, you may still be in the middle of the road, but you could have a balance. And if you're for a sort of a balance of libertarianism and authoritarianism, anything that's leaning towards, anything that's going in the direction of authoritarianism, you might say is going in that direction, but you may still actually be headed towards the balance if you've already started on the far right. But I do agree with John.
That's a fair point.
Yeah. What I said was it would tend towards the authoritarian end of the scale. And what I was referencing there was something that Sokka had brought up in an earlier stream about this Hobbesian spectrum, where on one end you have, you know, a benevolent authoritarian figure that controls everything, and on the other end of the scale you have complete libertarianism, where every individual is out for themselves. And then when you analyze different, you know, systems of government or society, they would all fit somewhere within that scale, you know. So when I say tending towards authoritarianism, it can be more to the middle, like what you're saying, Nick, you know, with a combination of, you know, different ideals.
I do think we need to
clearly
do our
admit I'm
best.
for big government. You know,
I think we need to admit here and just realize that we have to try to avoid saying Sokka's right. And if we can all sort of make that like a long-term goal, I think that would.
I call Sokka one of the gods of arguments, but that only refers to when we're speaking of God. Politics and Sokka don't mix with me.
By the way, Patreon /Sokka account.
I love Sokka.
So one
Can
thing.
I clarify one thing?
Yeah, go ahead. Sure.
Okay. And maybe you'll have more to say on it. Maybe you won't. When I argue with people online, as I tend to, it's mostly on my personal Facebook. There's a political group I'm a part of. People are afraid of big government, and I understand why. I get it, because history shows that governments tend to become tyrannical, authoritarianistic. That happens, right? That's why we advocate for a strong people-led democracy. We want ranked choice voting. We want money out of politics. We really want a government controlled by the people. So how I try to is what, Jim?
Oh, I just feel like somebody had to give you an amen, so I just threw one out there.
Oh, yeah, thank you. The way that I say it is, I don't advocate for like a strong government. I advocate for a strong society. I want a strong society.
Yes, exactly.
Leading everything.
Yes. And on that, what Max said, democratize the enterprise. That is a saying that's so old. It comes from Marxism. It's just, and when I say, and I'm sure I'm speaking for Mac as well, that we are critics of capitalism, that's not to say that I want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I like making money. I think that people that make money because they're doing something that they love, I'm for it. But I also feel like when Jeff Bezos goes through a divorce and has to hand his wife $30 billion, he's still the richest man in the world, and his wife just became ex-wife just became the 6th richest human in the world. It's disgusting.
Yeah,
it's disgusting.
Here's a good.
What I could do with that money, good I could do with that money.
I have to ask a question. Naka, I have a question for you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I do have my AC on, so
yeah. Okay. No, my question is this: what's it feel like to have 2,000 subs?
Oh, am I there now? Thank you so much.
Or there.
It feels good.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, I haven't checked in a minute.
Hey, and I've been meaning to share this, and congratulations, the Raging Atheists, and thank you, live chat. Over 2,000. Next stop, 10,000. Don't keep sharing his channel with everybody. And later tonight, he's going to be having a live hangout at 10 o'clock Eastern, right, Doc?
Yes. It will happen. I'm not going to allow myself to go to sleep.
Yeah, and I'll be there for that, and I imagine maybe there's other people here that might be there. Yeah, I wanted to say this too. So before I do a stream, because you said Naka, and I thought you were like picking on Sokka and calling his name like different or something. So I always sit down and I make a list before, and then I get on here and send the links out, and I got the list of the panelists, and then next to it the way in which I'm going to get the link. You know, some people I send through Twitter, some I email, yada yada. And the last 3 entries on the panelist list here that I used earlier tonight was Nick Knock Sock. And look, one thing I definitely want to have everybody talk about, because I mentioned it in the video description, and Jim told me, and I hope I'm not putting on a spot, he said he researched this a little bit, and I'm sure that Christy and Mac and even Nakasuchi, everybody here probably knows of different organizations, secular organizations that are doing charitable work, that we don't necessarily need religion, the structure of religion to be charitable to our fellow man. I'm not just on an individual basis, but in a collective way as well. Does anybody want to jump in on that and start the ball rolling on that?
FFRF.
What is that?
FFRF, Freedom from Religion Foundation. Yes, nonprofit. They're actually doing God's work. Like, they really are just being that wall between church and state. If a mother gets home from work and their child is crying because they got picked on because they didn't want to do the prayer that everybody was doing at their public school, FFRF gets called, and they pay for the lawyers. They pay for it. With anybody can be a member. It is $40 a year. However, if you don't have that $40 and you still want to get the information that they send out to all members, they will still send it to you. You just have to say, I want to be a member, I just don't have the money. They will still send it to you. They're phenomenal. If they were closer, if there was a branch closer, it would be hard to have time to want to go volunteer for Bernie, because I would be so busy. I believe in everything that they do, and so they better not fuck up, because that right there will be forever on YouTube.
Well, and I know that the ACA,
they're good too.
That I've heard many of the hosts talk about, like, different things they're involved with. I know that, and I can't remember the fellow's name, the big black guy that's a host on the Atheist Experience. He talks about every year, like they do, like I think a clothing drive, or winter coats for like homeless people and stuff like that. Jim, did you get a chance to do that, like you were saying, and research some of the secular charitable organizations that are doing good work out there, or am I kind of putting you on the spot?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, the first one that I want to mention, you guys already mentioned 2 or 3 of the biggest ones, the most prominent ones. But the foundation beyond belief, like when I think about humanism, like that's who I think about. They do disaster recovery. They go on missions where their priority is getting them food and water and medicine and shelter, and servicing these needy people without shoving religion down their throat or making them feel obligated to attend a church services. You have atheists helping the homeless. They do clothing drives and food drives, and they do this regularly. As a matter of fact, that the homeless in Austin, I'm pretty confident in saying that 90% of the homeless people in Austin are have a shirt put on their back by atheists helping the homeless.
That's awesome. Nick, through your work in the Humanist Codex, is there any organizations that you're aware of that you'd like to?
Freedom from Religion Foundation is definitely, I think, the top of my list. I also, and this is just more political, I am and have been for quite some time a card-carrying member of the ACLU, and they do some kind of out there stuff too, admittedly, but it's an organization that is, I think, extraordinarily important. Obviously not an atheist organization, and I was disappointed that they didn't help Aaron Ra when he was running in Texas, because in Texas it is written into the Constitution. It's the 4th article of the Constitution. You cannot be an atheist and hold office in Texas. In fact, there's 6 states where atheists cannot hold office. They are barred constitutionally by the state constitutions. And for some reason, the ACLU did not engage on that one. And probably, it's tough to say how and why, but at any rate, I am a big fan of the ACLU and the Freedom from Religion Foundation.
I think it's also important to
go ahead, Jim.
Just real quick, I just want to mention Engineers Without Borders and Doctors Without Borders. They they do so much good around the world in the face of danger, and that they are secular organizations.
Nurses Without Borders is another one.
Yes.
Yes. They travel everywhere.
A bunch of Without Borders.
Yes. Anything Without Borders is so far, from what I know, are good, wonderful. Another one is Recovering from Religion Foundation, or Recovering from Religion. I have looked into their stats. They get the most heartbreaking letters and heartbreaking phone calls of people who have stepped away from religion, but they wake up crying and sweating from cold sweat and nightmares of going to hell. And we're talking about 40 and 50-year-old grown-ups. So an organization like Recovering from Religion is a necessity, and it will be for a long time until we can. I mean, I am fortunate. I don't have residuals like that. I don't think, oh gosh, I could go to hell. I do sometimes think something happens, and that my immediate response is I want to say, so pray for us because this is going on, which I always am like, what the hell? Don't
still ingrained in your
yeah, it is.
Well,
yes,
well,
it's
being used to having that. Sorry.
No, you're fine.
I was just saying it's just being used to having that extra shoulder to cry on, and then all of a sudden it's being taken away, and it doesn't matter that shoulder wasn't really there.
Right.
We believed that it was there, and it was a coping mechanism, and it helped us through some really, really difficult times. I know you and I both, Christy, and it's really hard whenever that's taken away. It truly is a pacifier in some instances, but with so many more implications.
Yeah, I like to say that people are losing more than just an imaginary friend when they let go of religion.
Well, and that's actually that's one of the things actually that always bugs me is when atheists start to get belligerent about that too, and they say, "Well, why would you even want there to be a God? And this is so easy to give up." And I'm sitting there going, and I get really upset with that kind of behavior. And we actually on the Codex have had.
Yeah, you're very privileged in this. That's another huge spot where we, people who are humanists, need to step in, because they are not, like Max said, just stepping away from an imaginary friend. It is this whole thing that has encompassed who they are. For a lot of people, it's taking away their individual, like that's who they were. They were a man of God or a woman of God. They won't even marry someone unless they were also a believer. It's who they are. So when they realize, and I'm not the only one, many people say the same thing, when they came to that, oh man, I was wrong, that's huge. But then when everything else starts settling, it's like, okay, well, what do I do 3 times a week when I went to this place and hung out with these people? What do I do on the 4th of July when I normally would go to the church cookout? That whole thing is where we need to step in and say, but we can at least try. We don't have a church where we can go to, a building, but there are organizations, Sunday Assembly, places like that are stepping in and doing that. As far as I know, Sunday Assembly does once a month here in Tampa. So it's not every weekend. We need funding for that. We need all kinds of things. And I think just us being here on our own on a Saturday is huge. It's huge, guys. I mean, it just means that we care, that humanism is superior. I hate supremacy in any way it comes. Jewish supremacy, white supremacy, I hate it. However, because I'm goofball, I like to say that I'm a humanist supremacist.
Well, I'm only here because I'm getting paid.
I knew it.
You're what? Excuse me? Oh, John, John, I would like to discuss a few things with you after the stream, please.
Yeah,
was I not supposed to say anything?
Yeah, the thing is, the thing you don't know about Jim is that he thinks monopoly money is real money.
Oh, okay. Well, that would
You just pay him in
Wait a minute.
So this is how I'd like to end this, and I'm not saying end it. I'm not saying end it right now, but where I would like to take this discussion right now to the end of the stream here is, all right. So I'm sure there's theists in the live chat right now, and whoever wants to take the ball and run with it here, panelists, make an argument why we do not need God for morality.
Okay, I've got a really simple argument. Really simple.
All right.
There is nothing that religion provides that cannot be achieved by humanism, with less negative baggage, with less negative implications. There's not one single moral act that can be achieved by religion that cannot also be achieved by secularism. And I challenge them to name one.
Cool. I would just say we don't need a God because I myself have a higher moral standard than any of the gods that I've heard of.
He does.
So I don't know what I'm supposed to worship then. I don't know. I don't have a need for one, even if it exists. I need Christy Santiago, but.
All right. Okay.
So Mac, are you identifying as a Santiagoist?
I mean, you need a God for morality like you need Harry Potter for morality. It's the same thing. Why do you need a book to tell you what's right and wrong? Why do you need a fiction? You can judge that for yourself, and you base that upon your perception that you've developed throughout your life. Saying that you need God for morality to me is the exact same thing as saying I turn to Harry Potter for how to be a good human being. It's ridiculous.
But if you wanted to turn to Harry Potter, though, like if you wanted to turn to Harry Potter, then okay, but at least somebody's not telling you, hey, Harry Potter's the book you need to be reading, and you're reading it. You know what I'm saying? Like, at least you're looking at your own damn book.
And you'd probably get better morality from it.
Everyone knows that Lord of the Rings has superior morality.
So Harry Potter? Oh, that's it. It's on. Oh, that's it. I can't believe you just said that. I'm going to unsub you right now.
I'm so torn here.
Yeah.
Look, that is not the views of League of Extraordinary Atheists.
Okay.
You really messed with my head. I've never had to make that decision before.
It's okay. It will be okay, Steve.
I thought
Jim,
you were a
it will be
humanist,
okay,
Christy.
Jim. It will be okay.
I think, I mean, first off, before people start jumping on the Santiagoism, like bandwagon, okay, I just want to encourage people to check out Sokka cult. We're not a cult, definitely, but it's like a cult, but more fun, less compounds.
less Kool-Aid, less
Kool-Aid, less compounds. Yeah.
Okay.
Less government sieges.
Yeah.
I just want a tracksuit.
No, tracksuits are mandatory. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, I think that the problem with any kind of like religious moral faith system where you're going to try to ground it in some foundation of a god or God's dictates is that it absolves you of moral responsibility to a certain degree. Is that you're not working, you're merely acting in concordance with rules. So like you just you're viewing these things as this is what you have to do without any type of rhyme or reason. There's no really way for you to analyze a moral proposition then as actually right or wrong, and you just have to kind of take it this way. And therefore, if you act in a way that's in line with what you believe your God is saying, and then find out that God exists. Well, the entire time, like all those actions that you were doing, were not because of you. Like I said, you absolve yourself of that moral responsibility. You're not actually making any moral judgments at this point in time.
Well, this is really a problem. I'm kind of upset. This would be now twice in one stream where I agreed with Sokka. I think we're gonna. There is no God. I think we've definitely proven that now. Beyond.
That's the proof. We have all the proof we need. I want to just as a girl who was raised with religion, was also raised being told that I was born bad. that everything I had to do was to fix some way I was born that way, and I had to not be the way I was born. What a shitty way to raise the next generation. Like, seriously. I mean, I look at young girls, yeah, they're not born bad. And I think that as far as humanism being better or versus religion, that alone, teaching the next generation that they don't need to fix something that they didn't do, that's such bullshit. And it is superior to raise our next generation, knowing that they weren't born bad, that everything they do is a choice that they get to make because of information that they've attained. And religion doesn't give you that. It says you are born bad. You are not good enough. You have to deny these types of sciences because they don't fit in with this book. You know, it's just all these boxes that you have to be put in. And even if you do all of them, you're still not good enough. You still need to repent. So on that alone, you know, religion is far superior. Children are not born bad.
Wait, you misspoke. You said religion is far superior. You meant humanism.
Yeah, strike that. Put me in the spanking room.
Oh.
Wait, okay, wait. Why did everyone's hand just go up? Does everyone have something they want to say, or am I missing something here?
Yeah, no, yeah. She said spanking room, and everyone's hand went up.
Yeah.
So either everyone it's me or
yeah, I didn't know it was that kind of party. This is awesome.
Yeah, everything just took a sudden left turn. I got to come to more of your hangouts, John. I clearly go to the wrong parties.
She can't even handle her webcam. I don't want to see what she can do with the paddle. It's just gonna be awkward.
All right.
Okay, but so the problem is though is that for hundreds of thousands, millions of women have died in the past that have had to live under the rule to where, according to their religion, they're expected to be virgins until it's decided for her that she should have her virginity taken by a man of her father or her guardian's choosing. And at this point, she has one mission in life, and that's to give birth to the children of her husband and forsaking the simple pleasures of not only sex, but freedom to live and have sex by her own measures and by her own will. And and virgins that are raped are forced to marry their attacker and bear his children. And that's only if someone hears you screaming. If they don't hear you screaming, well, then you might be executed if you're engaged with somebody else. And it's so much more that women have actually had to live through. This isn't just some ancient text that doesn't apply to us anymore. This applied to women at one point. There are women who have lived their lives and died.
Just look at the cults that we deal with on a daily basis. At least, me especially, the NIFB, the 12 tribes, Quiverful. I mean, they all preach these male patriarchies here in the modern age. They are all still subjugating their women to male rule.
Still. But what I'm talking about, though, is that these women were stoned. Mm-hmm. These women were killed by their family. You know what I'm saying? Like it was on. Like it's so much worse than people just justifying their shitty actions today. Like these weren't just justifications for a fraction of these cases.
Oh yeah.
These
I got in a big argument.
Deal. Little boys getting their
I got in a big argument about that, about how people are saying, well, you can't blame Christians for the past, and I'm like, it's not like anybody's blaming Christians for the past, but we can hold you and your ideology accountable for the atrocious actions that was taken in the past. Yes. And if you're going to deny that, then you're part of the problem. You're not part of the solution.
We cannot blame Christians. We cannot, but it is Christianity is the problem.
It is the problem. You're right.
Religion is a problem, but
I think that because of those rules that Jim just said, because of those historic ways that we did things, we still feel them today in modesty culture. Like today, it's different. We're not stoning women in this country, but you're looked of as less.
Yeah,
You wear a bikini.
we're still shaming them, you know.
Absolutely, yeah. Modesty culture is disgusting.
Well, we come from Puritans. I mean, that's the effect on our culture is profound, and you don't really recognize it if you've never left our country. But try going outside of our country, going to Europe, and you're going to realize we are really repressed, and it's killing us. There's a reason we have a higher rates of heart attacks in the U.S. and why our health and life expectancy is lower. There's a lot of reasons, but that's one of them. We are a staggeringly repressed people.
And it has nothing to do with taking God out of schools.
No, no, nothing.
Well, I mean, you talk about religious charitable works, and most of the time it's because of the people that are doing them. If you remove the religious component from it, those people would still do good things for their fellow man because that's who they are. They want to give credit to the religion and their belief in God, but the fact of the matter is that's just who they are, whether they had religion or not. And that's why I always cringe at the people that are so vocal about saying, well, morality is based in God, and then you know, if it wasn't for God, you know, people would be, you know, committing all kinds of immoral acts, you know. But a lot of them, those people, if you put the question to them, the ones that will engage in this type of thought experiment, and you ask them, well, if it was shown to you tomorrow that no God exists, would you all of a sudden run out and start murdering and raping people and stealing? And mostly they will answer, well, of course not. And then you ask them why. And I mean, you know, and then there's the small minority of them that want to claim that those things would happen, and those are the ones that you say, well, please don't ever stop believing in your God.
I've actually asked this question, John.
It's like
Christians, and most of them, and I'll let you go, Jim, but most of them have actually responded that they would kill themselves the day they woke up and realized that there was no God.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
But you bring up an interesting point. I don't want to change directions here too much, but you brought up another really interesting point, which is sort of one that's been on the periphery of my mind, but I haven't really thought about, and I think you put well, which is whenever religious people do something good, they say it's the religion. Whenever they do something bad, well, it's the individuals. And there's this double standard where religion should get all the credit for all the good things that the religious do, but absolutely none of the blame for the bad things that they do, even if it's in the name of that religion. And that's a difficult double standard to put up with.
Yeah, it's like the wildfire that comes through, and a tornado and a wildfire meet, and the whole town's demolished, but this Bible makes it. God protected this Bible. Not to mention the 250 people that are dead, all the houses that are demolished. But that one Bible means that God's real. But
that's the great thing about it. So a wildfire goes through a town, and you know, half the town survives. The other half don't. Miracle, half the town survived. Miracle right there. Okay, only 10 people survived. Miracle, how could they survive when the whole town got wiped out? One person survives. Miracle, one person made it. That proves God. Everybody gets wiped out. God works in mysterious ways. It's all God every single time.
Yeah, no doubt.
This is something I wanted to touch on when Raging Atheist was talking about reading Harry Potter, right? I would say that's far more superior. Reading Harry Potter for morality. Again, kind of going back to where I started talking in the first place, was when you know it's not true. Well, yeah, we don't need to be told what to believe, but we're fine with taking suggestions. We're like, discourse is awesome, right? We want to talk about things. We want to know what Harry Potter has to say about things. We want to know what the Bible says about things. We want to know what the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, how they handle a situation, right? That's just another reason why I wanted this superhero feel, this comic book mentality associated with our podcast, is because It's not real. When you don't have the chance of having this double standard, when you don't have something to fall back on, saying, God works in mysterious ways. Oh, well, you don't understand the mind of Superman. When you don't have that, it falls back on you. You can take suggestions from anywhere in our worldwide culture, but you have to choose.
That's essentially what religion does. They borrow from other religions. You know, even if we conceded that Christians got their morality from the Old Testament or from the God of the Bible, they would have to concede that God of the Bible stole that moral framework from another God.
Yeah.
That's a really good point.
Well, I mean, okay, I'm ready for round. What are we in now? Round 3. Okay.
Well, hold on. I think I heard a baby talking, or it was Sokka. I don't know which.
Somebody get Sokka some water. He looks tired.
It was a baby Sokka that was talking.
Okay.
So when faced with the criticism then now from theists about things like secular humanism, when it comes to advocating for any type of moral system, how do you get away from the implicit relativistic notions that a system like secular humanism kind of provides?
How I get away from
I've got an answer, but I'm letting others. Yeah.
I've talked a lot. I mean, I also have an answer, but does anyone else want to answer? All right. Well, because for me, I think morality is subjective, and I've heard arguments that it's objective too. Like we can create an objective and then move towards that objective, and then and by that definition, it would be objective. But I don't really try to get away from it. I'm like, yeah, it's subjective, but I think as a society, we all agree that this is the goal that we want to go for: is less human suffering, more, you could say, pleasure, more happiness for people and for more people.
Yeah.
Without using a whole utilitarianistic system by just taking everything from the top down and spreading it to the bottom. You know, basically just limiting, like capitalism, limiting the goodness that everyone can take from the top, because we live in a world that has limited resources, right? So we just try to be charitable, try to regulate whoever ends up being our superiors, and just take care of each other.
So let me ask you a question then. Unless somebody wants to, I'll ask the question first. When you have a system that kind of relies on maximizing happiness, okay, like that seems to be a goal there. So for example, how often do you buy coffee? Like going for a cup of coffee. You know, I mean, if you go for a cup of coffee, you know, a couple times a month, 4 or 5, just doesn't really matter.
You sound far away now.
It's
very quiet.
I got to drop and come back.
There we go.
Sokka, come back.
Okay.
Well, I wanted to throw in 2 cents into this, which is
real quick though, Nick. Is that all we had to do from the beginning to get rid of him? Is tell him his mic was bad?
Why didn't anyone think of that?
Oh wait, I tried to present him and I ended up muting him. And then I tried to unmute him and he had already unmuted himself and I muted him again. All right. I got to get you shown here, Sokka. You're not in the broadcast yet. All right.
Take your time. Take your time. Nobody's in any rush.
Yeah, it seems like you talked like before about, you know, leaning towards things like socialism and maximizing happiness and not having actually like, you know, this that type of standard that you need to kind of fall back on. But then it kind of brings into question things like, you know, for example, for yourself, you know, like I was saying, like you probably go out maybe a couple times a month, get yourself a cup of coffee, if not every single day, like a lot of people do. And it seems that if you were to, you know, really stay true to like the kind of pillars of humanism, you realize that this expendable income, if you wanted to maximize happiness, would be better off going towards charity. You know, that in fact, like something like a luxury, like getting yourself a cup of coffee, like a $4 Starbucks cup of coffee every single day. It would actually be immoral for you to continue on with that behavior if you're not doing whatever you can to exemplify or maximize human happiness elsewhere.
Hey, you know, that's interesting, because here's the thing, and I can't remember who it was, and maybe somebody else here can help me, maybe Nick. There was somebody who wrote a book, and that was their thesis, that by going out and buying luxury items, and by luxury items, you know, he meant that things that aren't necessities, like you go out and this is how long the book was, because he used VCRs as an example. You go out and you buy a VCR, and you are, you know, part of the problem of suffering in the world, because that money would be better put towards the collective and helping pull people up from, you know, being impoverished and downtrodden.
Yeah, I want to push back on that. Like, I disagree totally with that whole assumption. I know, like, when I was listening to Gray and Chrissy speak, they were specifically talking about, you know, excessive greed. They were talking specifically about one of the richest people in the world, and that's the conversation to have. It's not like you can't enjoy these social comforts, and you can't enjoy this capitalist society we have. But the question is, when is too much too much? You know, like me not buying a coffee, that's not going to really do much to change the world. But Jeff Bezos not having half the fucking money he doesn't even need is going to go a long way towards helping the world. So you have to adjust, because that's the argument they give towards socialism. Well, you're not a true socialist if you buy a cup of coffee, and that's just not true. That's not what any of us are speaking of. We are speaking of, we need to have a discussion of what is too much and when do we cut it off.
Right.
Well, I don't think that was Sokka's point. I don't think that's what Sokka. I don't think that's what Sokka was arguing. I think actually Sokka was kind of coming at this from a different direction. If I can speak for Sokka for a second.
I just heard a little bit, but go ahead, Nick. You know, I wanted to go at that because I get that a lot with my socialism. You know,
I want to piggyback I think for me and for the type of socialism, for lack of a different word, we gotta, as a community of humans, say, what kind of world do we want to live in? Do we want the wealthiest people to have to step over homeless people to get into their luxurious apartments? Is that acceptable? I say no. But I don't think that, a mom and dad, any regular citizen can't achieve their goals and put money in the bank and say, I don't want totalitarian dictatorship socialism. There's nothing to do with what I want. I think that setting up a society that benefits everyone means that everyone has to pitch in. And if you're a multi-hundred billionaire, you have to pitch in more. You'll never feel it. So, I don't understand why you would, it would be like the $150 million and $1 and up that gets taxed. You'd be fine. And for every average mom and pops that make $20,000, $30,000 a year, that's normal America. $20,000 to $30,000 a year is normal America. So at the end of the year, out of your $660 in taxes, if you made $25,000, you're not going to pay that much. $60 of it goes into that, helping it would have to be fair for everyone. If you can't afford it, well, then you benefit, because that's who it's for, the people who can't afford it.
I think Sokka's point actually was not to the economics, to the economic question. I think it was a moral question. So if the idea is that we want to maximize sort of human happiness, that's the goal of each individual here. Would then we not be morally obligated not to get a cup of coffee, but instead put that money towards where it is, where it would be have maximum utility? So I think what he's arguing is, should we not be maximizing utility 24/7? And is buying a cup of coffee really doing that? Sokka, is that a reasonable representation of what you were saying? If you even heard what I said.
No, I caught the end of it, but yeah, that's exactly it. Okay. Is that like when you start laying down like this foundation, like this position where it's like, well, this is what we're going to approach it, and this is what it means for something to be morally good. I'm not saying that you have to do that, but I'm saying that by your own system that you'd be putting out there to engage in any type of act. Pardon me?
Yeah, but if one puts that system out there, then to do anything but would be in violation of that person's system. Without
right. You couldn't live you couldn't live consistently with that system. If that's virtually what you're putting out there, well, it seems ideal. We can demonstrate easily, though, that even by people that would endorse that system could not live consistently with it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and that's why I think I was trying to push back on that, because I don't think any of us are pushing for a system like that. You know, we are not, you know, yes, in an ideal world, I would love that for every parent to raise their children to have these kind of thought processes, and they're going to think about everybody else. But that's not going to happen. You know, that is a utopia type of framework of thinking. What we are basically saying is that this country is run by the elite rich. These elite rich continuously pay no taxes at all. Like, you know, Bezos last year paid no taxes. I am a poor dude. I pay taxes. We need to look at this country, and we need to stop giving all credence to the rich, all power to the rich. We need to take our power back. And I think that's basically what we're saying is it's not a fight. Oh, everybody needs to be equal. We need communism. What we need is fairness. And I think that's basically what we're asking for.
Right.
Yeah.
And what we value. I think that as a society in this country, we value someone who has a plethora of $1 bills over someone who does a plethora of good deeds.
So let me try to answer this more directly to what I think Sokka is trying to say. And not that I think we're not directly answering. I think we are using economics as the example to answer. But to really try to nail it down to what I hope you're looking for is, one, I have 2 points. One is I hate coffee, actually. So,
well, there you go. We're done.
It's the answer. He's answered it.
2, as I said, I don't advocate for authoritarianism or straight utilitarianism. So everything in moderation. To each their own, really. We want to give everyone the tools to be able to get out of poverty and make sure everyone has the tools to reach, you know, this pursuit of happiness. But we can't make everyone do it. And I had another follow-up point, but I've got it already. And I was real excited to share it, but I forgot it.
I don't think he's asking what you could make other people do. I don't think he's asking about other people. I think he's asking about the individual values of each person actually in this room.
Yeah. And I mean, to a point, I agree. To a point, I agree. And the example I was going to use, which I now remember, is veganism. I think it is the moral superior to anything like in that realm of talking about morals. You ought to be a vegan if you want to be kind of like morally superior when you're talking about well-being of living organisms, right? But again, like Raging Atheist said, we're obviously not going to get that. And it's hard for a lot of people to do. Like a lot of people just with their health, they couldn't just make that switch. But you can take steps to try to maximize the amount of happiness and well-being that you give to society. So yes, the more I try to, because I'm the great skeptic, I like to think in things in like gray area and scales, especially with morality, which I'm so glad we're talking about. You can do more and less moral acts, right? So the more you do give to charity, the more moral person you can claim to be. The more you take for yourself, the less moral, the more immoral person you can claim to be righteously. I believe anyway. So yeah, I think you should strive for it, but I don't think, again, I don't advocate for making everyone do that, and I'm not necessarily saying that you're trying to stick that to me. I'm trying to.
No, I mean that's consistent. I mean, like as long as then we acknowledge that in that in a perfectly kind of a humanist society, or if you want to put yourself off as someone who's an advocate for humanist humanist morality, like so. yeah, like, so all the people here, that say they're humanist, need to understand that by that framework, when you go to Starbucks the next time and you're standing in line looking for a cup of coffee, understand that what you're doing right now is the lesser of two moral options, and see how many people can actually live consistently with that.
No, I agree.
Well, I think a couple of things. First of all, I would go a little bit with Durkheim, who would say that the healthiest individual is someone who balances a thought for themselves and balances a thought for society. So I think when we talk about maximizing what we can do for society, we are also sort of doing that in the framework of understanding that we also do have to consider ourselves, and we're excluding that from the discussion. We're saying, okay, in the part where we're talking about society, we're trying to be as conscious as possible. Now, this can lead to people saying, well, the part I need for myself is to keep $1 billion, and the part I need for society is different. So I understand that this is also not necessarily. This is an answer that is subject to misuse or abuse, but for the most part, we must consider ourselves and society. And sometimes, for your own mental health, there are things, if you never pamper yourself, if you never take care of yourself emotionally or mentally, you will break down, and then you're no good to anybody. And in fact, this is when I have friends who are in extreme psychological distress. Sometimes I try to, who are giving too much of themselves to other people. I have to say, you have to stop, because if you have a mental breakdown, you are no good to anybody. So I have parents who have children who are in severe need of just perpetually all the time. The parents will want to give more than they can healthily give and stay healthy. So I think the thing about moral relativism, Stephen Fry said this, there's nothing wrong with moral relativism. It's called thinking. And there's just sort of the notion that, unfortunately, would love a rule that can be applied all the time, everywhere, universally, and we say this is objective. Nobody has found, to the best of my knowledge, any such rule. So what you do is you have guidelines and you do your best to stick with them, but it's not going to be an objective rule that you can say applies universally, because of exceptions such as mental health and so on and so forth. And what determines who you are as a human being is, I think what he had said, Max said earlier, it really depends on how you interpret these rules. And you will hopefully get pushback and feedback from society if you go too far in one direction or another.
I completely agree.
So before we finish this, I just want to say that, on the most part, I actually am a secular humanist. Because, by the way, it's just that.
Well, you're a secular sockist. I mean, you're
yeah, secular sockist. Yes. It's just that I think that, and I just the only reason why I ask these, the only reason why I can present these is because there is. It's really good to be a secular humanist. I think that it's a really good position to argue for, but there are pushbacks to it, and these are the things that I push back with myself constantly about, trying to come to terms with this, and it's tough.
If it's not the best system, then we should find out by getting the pushback and not being able to answer it. And if it is the best system, we should be able to answer pushback.
Hey,
so I don't think anyone should be afraid of it.
Let me interject here. Much like the Raging Atheist, I kind of consider myself a bit of a wordsmith. So I just want to throw this out there. I think the proper term should be a socular humanist.
Nice.
I think that is. I like that one.
That's the second. That's the second tenet of being part of the Sokka cult.
What's the first one's tracks? The first one's tracksuits.
Well, yeah, and I did want to kind of point to what Sokka is speaking of. I would love for every human being to have some kind of personal accountability and to look at the world and see how it really is. But personally, my humanism isn't about so much as getting that homeless person off of the streets. I'm still all for buckle up by your bootstraps, work your ass off, and you're going to get what you want. My humanism personally is about seeing that homeless man as a human being and not seeing him as less than me or or as this disgusting person that I'm not going to talk to. I actually make it a point in my regular life to put myself in those uncomfortable conversations. You know, people around here talk a lot of smack about people bumming, and I'm not necessarily going to give them money every time, but I'm going to sit there and have a conversation with them and try to get on a human level with them and not see them as something I need to get away from. And I think that that's mainly what my humanism speaks to.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, it's much the same, but it's like, you know, my misfortune recognizes and acknowledges their misfortune, and it's just it's more sympathy than empathy. I know what it's like to be in many of those situations, and I sympathize with them.
Yeah.
I think all humans are one bad decision or one natural disaster or one bad mistake away from being homeless.
Yeah.
And when you realize that, you realize how fortunate you are to not be in the same predicament that that other person is, that you could be in. And you would want, if you were put in that position, and I'll just speak for myself, if I happen to find myself homeless, I would want people to see me as a human and want to help, because I don't, maybe I do live in a utopian land. I don't know. I can't look at a human suffering and not put myself in their shoes and think, I don't have millions. I don't have tons of things, but is there something I can do to help them right now, right at this moment?
Yeah. And speaking of your point, Chrissy, like, you know, my daughter just got diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. I am not a rich man. If I lose my insurance, that's $700 a vial. It ruins me. I am on the streets and she is dead, basically.
So that's the system. Yes, I don't think that I hate calling it a big government, but the system is broken when it takes regular people have the church should take care of it. Well, what if they don't like the way he thinks of their ideas? Then they're not going to help him. I think that the system, we have to, as a society, think, what kind of world do we want to live in? And is it okay that this dad who gets his insurance through his work, at any time something could happen, say your boss decides to just not have that business anymore, anything, and that's out of your hands. There needs to be something set up that we as a society have said, that's unacceptable. What needs to happen is the bare necessities, a place to live, a safe place that's clean. And I don't think that, you know, we should just, there are more homes than homeless people that are empty in this country. And I don't think that we should give mansions out to homeless people. I'm not, you know, the stereotypical, you know, she's the ones that give stuff away. No, I don't. I just think that it's absurd that we can't, as a society, think these things are wrong. These are our options to take care of it. Let's pick and choose and figure this shit out and stop lollygagging. The system has to be fixed. And we, the people, is our constitution. So if we, the people, don't start getting involved and start hashing this shit out, you think the people on top are going to? They don't care. They step over the homeless people to go into their luxury apartments. It's our responsibility, and we have to take it back.
Well, and the countries that do that.
All I was going to say, and on top of what you were saying, you know, about Nakasuchi's situation, the idea that vial of medicine has to cost $700.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and she uses, I would say, 2.5 vials, and they say it's going to double come puberty. You know, that's a lot of money. Who makes that kind of money? You know, not many people. Without that insurance, you're done. You know.
Well, and the countries that actually take care of their own people, usually the Scandinavian countries. Look, the tax rate in those countries is upwards of about 50%, and we take a look at that and we say, oh my God! But on the flip side, they have a 100% literacy rate. They have the highest health and happiness index on the planet. They live longer. It turns out that if you take care of your people, they're happier, healthier, and they can actually get more done. So yeah, they give up 50% of their income, but they get more back out than they're putting into it.
Right.
So,
and I don't think people realize when they hear that 50%, their mind shuts off. What you're not told is if you took how much they spend in taxes and then took how much Americans spend in this and 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 this, they still spend less. That's never hammered home here.
Yeah, their healthcare
more
systems actually cost less.
Their
Right.
disposable income after the expenses is higher than ours because of all where that money has to go. So it looks like you've got more money, but when you actually do the math, we have less.
And they work less too.
Yes,
they do.
And they work less, they're happier, but that feeling valued, it might sound cheesy, but damn, that means something. You know, your nation cares about you so much that they've implemented legislation to make sure that you and your family are safe, that your descendants who you'll never meet will be benefiting from the taxes that you paid in. I just love that idea. And I think that where we're missing that the conversation of hammering it home here is to let people know, yes, you know, they try to get Bernie with those questions. Well, are taxes going to be higher for middle class? Fucking yes. Yes, they are. I'm sorry.
Well,
I wish he would just say yes. Just say
the thing
yes,
is, though, is
just say yes.
Yes.
But the
But they
thing is,
don't
though, is
ever
that,
know
you know,
how much they're going to save. They never tell people how much they're going to save.
the average American has a 37-38% tax burden. And that's not that much less than these Nordic countries on this Nordic model, that like Norway and Sweden. We're talking like just 39 to 41% of a tax burden. So not that they don't pay that much more taxes than we do. But the problem that we have is appropriation, where we're putting that money.
Yes.
Oh, that's a huge. I mean, we put more money into our military than every other country in the world combined. And of the top 28 countries that come after us, 26 of them are our allies. So, I mean, you take a look at, we own 90% of all the foreign military bases on the planet are owned by the United States. So we're putting this huge military presence everywhere, and it's killing us. It's actually exactly what killed Rome, too, an overextension of their military. And we are headed that way. But the other thing that Bernie maybe should say, and I think this is worth noting, and I say this to my in-laws who are literally Tea Party. So here I am, Obama guy, they're in the Tea Party. And they say, well, we just want to get things back to the 60s. And I say, great, I agree. Let's get things back to the 60s where a single parent income could, you know, you could have a family, you could have a car, you could have I agree. Let's do that. The way they did it is real simple. They had a 91% marginal tax rate on anyone making over $1 million. So that's how it was done. That's how it was done. I agree. We're on the same side. So let's do it.
And nowadays they could make it 100 million, and you know,
and to put it into perspective,
what 10 million
right now.
Sorry, John. Oh, sorry, Jim. Go ahead.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but the highest tax bracket ends at $500,000. It's anything over $500,000 is a flat rate, and it doesn't go any higher up. There's no higher tier. So for the people making $1 million a year, they're paying the same amount of the same percentage of taxes as the people who are making 20 million, $1 billion. You know, so these people who are making all this money, and they're not paying their share.
Loopholes. I mean, Mitt Romney was paying 14%. Mitt Romney's total tax burden was 13.9% was his total tax burden. His secretary's tax burden was I think 31%. So
I remember that story.
That's what mine is.
Yeah.
I think that, you know, these laws that are written the way they are, these absurd laws, are written by the lawmakers, the people who are writing the laws. It's very simple. If we want to have a say in that, we need to run for those positions. We need to have a horse in the game. We can't just go, well, they don't care about us.
Well, and we also need to be vocal back. We need to voice.
Hold on, Jim.
We need to voice the truth back. Like a perfect example is AOC talking about a capital gains tax, and then I see all over the place, you know, people making $20,000 a year talking about socialism and how AOC is trying to raise all of their taxes. Like, learn some truth, and we need to be vocal back because they're going to put out a misrepresentation, and it's up to us to clarify that.
Yes.
Can I?
Said that we want to tax everybody at 75%.
So, hi.
I think Jim had a. Okay.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jim.
No, here comes the blowback. Go ahead, Sokka.
Hi, Mr. Unpopular Opinion, right? So just out of curiosity, The U.S. is the only country in the world that we can that would be defined as a military superpower now. And the designation of a military superpower isn't just the size of one's military. Like there's a lot of countries out there that have huge militaries, nor what do you spend on your GDP. There's countries that spend more of their GDP on military spending than the U.S. does. They're just not as rich a countries. But the thing with the U.S. though, or what classifies as a military superpower, is the fact that it has military bases around the world. The Soviets had this during the Cold War, where they had military bases that they can launch offenses at different locations around the world with very little logistical support, because they had these bases. That's what defines the U.S. as this power, because they maintain foreign bases around the world. It could be Korea, Japan, Germany, Italy. They have bases everywhere, and the majority of the U.S. spending on military budget doesn't go just towards building up its military. It goes to maintaining the logistics between shipping and moving stuff between these bases, and having that presence on an international scale is what keeps the U.S. as like this military superpower. But one of the benefits of having this military superpower as well is that some would argue that having the U.S. as a military that can respond to international incidents at any location around the world with very little, logistical support, that actually maintain offenses in other places of the world, is what actually brings some stability to some regions. Now, granted, it can be argued that the U.S. Also creates instability as well. But if the U.S. cut back on military spending, closed all the international bases, and just became like a national defense force like almost every other country in the world, if that had effects of increasing the destabilizing different regions of the world, which would increase the amount of human suffering that exists out there, wouldn't it be a humanist concept for the U.S. to increase their spending rate so they can maintain that?
It would, but I foresee several problems. One, that's sort of the point of NATO, and that's the point of us getting into organizations where we can share that burden, and then a French base is a U.S. base because we're all in NATO together. So first of all, we should be relying far more on those countries. Second of all, when we were in a Cold War with Russia, that may have made a lot more sense. Right now, the biggest thing we need is soft power, and that's where we are falling short, especially in regards to China and North Korea as well. But let's stick with China. The bases that we have isn't going to help us with our current biggest military problems. China is one of them, and the number of bases that we have, we can hit China 6 ways from Sunday, and most of it's going to be a navy, and we need a few bases. It's not. China is a soft power problem, and China we have to deal with economically, and most of the threats that we have today, those bases aren't a huge help. The most recent one, I forget where it was, where we still can't get to half the places. So Turkey, we wanted to fly through Turkey to for what was the most, was it, oh God, I want to say it was Syria, but they wouldn't help us, so we had to go through Germany. Well, Germany is an ally. That's why we have allies, and we ended up not needing a U.S. base because we could use foreign bases from allies. And if we destabilize ourselves by overspending, by overreaching, and by not investing in infrastructure, in our own citizens, and in what we need to be a stable country ourselves, the base is not only not going to help, but it's going to make matters worse.
Well, hey, let me step in here real quick and be devil's advocate, and much like you, Nick, I'm loath to agree with Sokka, but I think when you talk about the reality of the situation, if say tomorrow Congress decided we're going to cut the military budget in half, and a lot of these things happen that, like Sokka implied, where we weren't going to have as many bases around the world, we weren't going to, be putting as much, military out into different regions of the world, that would have an instantaneous destabilizing effect on a global scale, and that would affect many people. So I think that's what he's trying to say, is that, you know, to make a change like that kind of goes against the tenets of humanism, because it would end up in the long run hurting a lot of human beings.
Not if we replace it with soft power, not if we work with our allies, and again at you know, having a greater military expenditure than every other country in the world combined. I think we could cut it in half and would be okay, especially whereas most of those other countries are allies.
Yeah, I would agree totally. I looked at this back in 2016 when Bernie was running in 2016, and everybody was talking about medical costs. If you look, and back then, these numbers are about 5 years old. But one thing that really stuck out when it comes to this conversation is aircraft carriers. I think there were 12 aircraft carriers at the time. I think they literally cost about $2 trillion a piece. We had 9 of them. The rest of the world had 3. You know, like, we have a military of world conquest proportions. America is not supposed to be the police of the world. We have made ourselves such, and it is up to us to unmake ourselves such.
And we can still we can still project that soft power, which is exactly what, by the way, China's doing and kicking our butts in. And their influence is growing because we're thinking of them as a military threat, not a political one.
Right.
Nick, Mac has his hand up there. Go ahead, Mac.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. Just something that comes to mind is that international treaties are supposed to be treated as law to us, and we break those. We break those a lot. But if we were to cut back our military spending and our military involvement in other countries, and jumped on to international treaties and treated those as international law, we could enforce those with the United Nations and with NATO, just like you're saying. We have other means to do it, and they're more. Now I can't think of the word for diplomacy. Diplomatus. We don't need to strong arm everyone. We don't need to be the cops of the world. If we want to be the cops of the world, we should do it with other parts of the world. It shouldn't just be us doing it.
And yeah, in conjunction with, it's not, and we need to work. And that also involves sort of a give and take. I think we just like the idea that we have so much power, it really does end up being our way or the highway. If you don't like the way we do it, we withdraw all our support and help. Well, you know what? We make mistakes too. And that was actually what happened with the Iraq War. We sat there and we said, we want everyone's help and we think everyone should come with us. The rest of the world said, no, you're wrong. And we said, okay, we are going to project our power into Iraq because we think it's right. And that kind of unilateral thinking increases the ability to make severe mistakes, which is what that was. And everybody recognized it, except for Palau, who happened to be on our side on that one. Yay. Yeah. And I mean, that was a great example of why having too much of a military and being able to unilaterally make decisions isn't necessarily a good thing for anyone.
Well, and just look at the waste in our military spending. Like, nobody talks about that. We literally have a new age jet that we have put in trillions upon trillions of dollars for almost a decade now that doesn't even get off the ground. We misplaced what was it at one point?
Well, it gets off the ground. It's just the problem is it comes back down a little too quickly.
Yeah, we totally lost like $10 million during the Iraq War. I remember that specifically. Just gone. $10 million, just gone. You know, like, we should be using our money more strategically. We could actually take a lesson from Russia in this and see, like, they don't have a superpower military, but they have some of the most sophisticated technology military-wise in the world. They just, a year or two ago, had a weaponized satellite in space that birthed other weaponized satellites. They are so far beyond our technology, and they don't spend near the money that we spend.
Yeah.
Well, and our own military is asking to spend less. Our military is saying they want to spend less, and the Pentagon keeps saying, no, we're going to buy more tanks. They said, we don't need any more tanks. Our Pentagon said, no, we're getting more Abrams tanks. And the reason is because they want to keep people employed, because they can put the contracts to build those tanks into manufacturing districts that are losing money and where they have, often it's Republicans, but the Democrats do it too, to try to help get their people elected by getting those contracts and getting people jobs.
Well, no, Nick, we needed more tanks.
And he gives the guys with the ASVAB scores jobs as well.
We needed more tanks for Trump's parade.
Yeah, they needed to be on Pennsylvania Avenue.
Right. I forgot about that. Yeah.
Go ahead, Jim.
I was just saying that they also needed more jobs for everybody who scored really low on the ASVAB.
Sokka, were you trying to get in a minute ago?
No, I was just saying the Raging Atheist Russian collusion confirmed there. That was it.
I'd like to keep Sokka out of this because I'm really tired of agreeing with him. And if he just says something else, I'm gonna have to, it's. I think the world is coming to an end.
I mean, if you'd like to disagree with Sokka, we could start a whole other discussion about liberalism and conservatism.
Oh, let's go. Let's go there. Yeah, that's a great idea. Everyone's nice.
You want a discussion on classic liberalism and conservatism,
right? Yeah. So I think we're at a point here where we could start wrapping this up. And I don't like personally, I like to take part in the 4 to 6 hour streams, but I don't necessarily like to mod them. But let's, as a matter of fact, let's start with Sokka account for his final words. I saved him to the end the other night, and I think that was the wrong move. Sokka, your final words, and tell us about where we can find you.
I am the Sokka account. Whenever somebody starts, and if my daughter starts crying right at that time, I'll make it short. Subscribe to Sokka account. I'm going to be doing a bunch more hangouts, just random topics, as well as I'm going to be doing a lot of traveling in the next year. So there's going to be a bunch of videos updated from wherever I end up, Australia, Asia, all over the place. So, subscribe to Sokka account. I'll put my link in the external chat. I'm not going to do the full spiel. That's it.
I didn't have the music ready anyway, so I'm glad you stopped where you did. Nick Soutter.
Yes. My name is Nicholas Lamar Soutter, author, writer. I am the owner and operator of the Humanist Codex, which is a social networking site for humanists and atheists and even theists, and also a repository of anti-theist arguments. I also have a channel, Nicholas Lamar Soutter, on YouTube, Twitter account, and the other thing is, since we were talking a lot about this, I'll bring this up. I'm a writer, and I wrote what Kirk has called the definitive rebuttal against Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged. So it was, sort of a takedown of at least the pure capitalist model. It's a novel, it's a book. It was designed to rebut Atlas Shrugged, and that's called The Water Thief. You can find that on Amazon, and I think that just about covers it. But if you want to see my videos, debates, and stuff like that, Nicholas Lamar Soutter on YouTube.
And we will, I always, when I have Nick on, I put a link in his information in the pinned comment where you can find that book and the other books he's written. The Raging Atheist.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. I'm sorry, Nakasuchi. And where should people be tomorrow at 2 o'clock, Nick?
Tomorrow we are, the Veritas Voices we are doing our very first, it's myself, Renee, most of you probably know him, and Lilith Liberated, and Pink Heretic is a part of the group. She's not going to be there tomorrow, but we're going to be doing a stream here in the Great Debate community on the moral necessity of anti-theism, and that's going to be the topic. Anyone can come in, chat, talk. Looking forward to hopefully seeing you guys there tomorrow, 2 Eastern Standard Time. Thank you for reminding me.
Yes, Nakasuchi.
All right, sorry, I do got my AC running again. I'm Nakasuchi, the Raging Atheist. You find my channel on YouTube. Thank you very much, guys, for pushing me over 2,000. I do response videos, and I have conversations, sometimes complex, sometimes dumpster fires. You can see the greats like Sokka and Dragnot crushing Christians on a regular on my channel. I just sit back and let them do all the work.
All right, and where should people be tonight at 10 o'clock? Knox.
Oh yeah, on my channel we're gonna have. I'm sure it'll be a dumpster fire.
Jim Majors, disciple of Kairos.
Hey everybody, I'm Jim Majors, a disciple of Kairos. You can find me at Disciple of Kairos on YouTube or at the Jim Majors on Twitter. It's Kairos. I do biblical criticism, breakdowns of passages that are popular or that trouble people. Also do debates against Christian fundamentalists, and yeah, check me out.
And Gray Skeptic.
Okay, good. I'm not muted. I'm Gray Skeptic. You can call me Mac. You can find me at Gray Skeptic. On YouTube, you can find me at the League of Extraordinary Atheists for Humanism. You can find me on Twitter at Gray Skeptic Mac. Those are the best places to find me. And I just wanted to say to you, John, you really gathered a really great panel of humanists.
This was marvelous.
Great conversation.
I had a marvelous time.
Thank you.
Christy, don't forget to close us out before John.
All right. Well, yeah. Well, and I did purposely save the best for last. Christy Santiago.
What is Jim? Did Jim go? Oh, he did go. I'm sorry. I think I stepped away.
I see, Mr. Jim. You just look for the mustache.
Well, no, Nakatsuchi was asking if he had went yet for his final word, because I had said best for last, and he thought I jumped over Jim.
Never. But, never. Okay. Every Friday night on the LEA podcast, which stands for the League of Extraordinary Atheists for Humanism, I'm with Mac. It's a good time. 10:30 p.m. Eastern. You can also find me on Twitter. That's at Christine Dawn SA. So ChristineDawnSA. And Facebook, Christy Santiago. If anybody wants to look at really weird pictures of my hair growing out, that's what you'll find. Yes, I'm definitely becoming a silver vixen this year. Actually, I'm not becoming. I am. This is false advertisement. So I'm just going to grow it out. So that's what you'll find there. But besides that, long conversations, humanism, politics, I think that all of these things matter. So anybody wants to talk about any of those things, let me know. I will come on. And stay humanist for God's sake.
So, and I'm John Peterson. You can usually find me here on Saturdays, or you can catch me floating around in one of the Raging Atheist streams on a regular basis. And next week, just to tease a little bit, I've already asked Cheshire Vic and Dave McGinnis to be there, and they said they'd mark it on their calendar. And we're going to try something where we're going to have a panel of people, and then we're going to take suggestions as to what they should debate about. And some people, in certain instances, you may have to take the side of the argument that you don't necessarily agree with. Kind of like debate class or debate club back in high school. And loosely, I came up with a working title. I came up with a working title for it. We're going to call it Master Debaters, a very gratifying experience. So look for that next week. I'll tweet out about it when we firm things up. I always try and end every week with a quote. And you're going to have to bear with me here. This is a pretty long one, but it's something that I really love, and I want to share it with everybody. What a good government does, what a republic does, is moderate competition, allow the tug of war, but never let one side walk away with the rope. They also establish rule of law and a safety net below which people cannot fall. Everybody can vote. Everybody can share power, no matter how rich or poor. Everybody has rights, and the republic is strong enough to enforce those rights. Police, health, mail, education, the things that everybody needs are guaranteed. Corporations can compete, but they are kept reasonably honest and not allowed to over-leverage and risk people other than themselves. People will abuse the system. Some corporations will get away with crime, but the distribution of a minimum amount of power and resources to all people hedges the damage. And it forces the wealthy not to be slaves to the poor, but to have a modicum of concern for them because they can vote. Nicholas Lamar Soutter in The Water Thief. Thank you for being here with us today, folks.